Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the WWE Fastlane report for 2021, March the 21st, 2021. Um, Yet again, this show is disgraceful, and the Peacock switch went about as well as anyone with even a quarter of a brain would think. I had to switch to watching on the network. I really am dismayed at the corporate greed that is involved in transactions like this. Yes, I understand business. I've run multiple businesses of my own, but the simple fact that they're willing to let millions of fans potentially go without something that they took almost 7 years to build on the basis of this deal, and they didn't plan it properly, shows the arrogance, narcissism, and complete lack of respect for the core fan base that they've built for since 1963. I don't agree with this. The Peacock thing signed me out multiple times, lagged when I could use it, pixelated, and a whole bunch of other things. That's been my experience. You may have another experience. Anyway, on to the pre-show. And by the way, I will be covering the Back to Attack NWA pay-per-view from earlier today, which was a much better show than this. In any event, Kayla Braxton introduces the panel members, and then they do a bunch of recap junk that nobody really watches unless they are new to the product. Then we go to Riddle versus Mustafa Ali. Good match for itself, but why is this on the pre-show? Why is the U.S. champion on the pre-show? Why is a guy who could be the face of your brand because he has real fighting experience on the pre-show? They do a bunch of recapping of this because, well, we don't have first-run content to sustain us. And then Riddle hits a series of knees, takes advantage. He picks him up for a gut-wrench suplex and a Broton. Near fall, Riddle attempts a second one, but Ali gets his feet up to take over. Ali sends Riddle into the ring post and yelled at Retribution to basically do something. They go after, Ali goes after the ribs of Riddle. Ali slips out of the Bro Derek and hits a drop kick. Ali regains control, but looks to have injured his knee. He hits a rolling back stabber for a near fall. Ali goes for a running neck breaker. Riddle reverses that into a submission. Riddle hits a powerbomb into a finish. Ali attempts a tornado DDT. Riddle rolls through, hits a fisherman buster. Locks on the Koji clutch as a way to finish. Comes. Riddle climbs the top rope. Ali cuts him off. Riddle fights back. Hits the Bro Derek on the second turnbuckle for the win. Post-match, Retribution tries to help Ali, but he's yelling at them. Reckoning steps forward, and Ali got in his face. She gets back. He demands she get back in line. That's otherwise known as Mia Yim. She walks away. Slapjack walked off as well. Ali yells at Mason T-Bar, blamed them for the loss. Mason T-Bar double choke slam Ali. I guess they have finally abandoned this completely worthless gimmick. On to the main show with more random worthlessness. Nia Jackson, Shayna Baszler defeat Reginald, defeat Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair to retain the titles. Match was fine. Basically, all four members of the match can't get along. They do some recaps. Both teams argue with each other early, trying to do the Chris Candido Lance Storm thing from 1997. By the way, it's not 1997 anymore. And obviously, I know that they've done it before then, but it's just the most memorable in my mind. Baszler gets worked over by Belair early. Belair hits a handspring moonsault near fall. Baszler and Belair kind of have some clunky moments. They recover. Baszler rocks Belair with a knee to the face. Baszler goes for a stomp. Jax makes a blind tag. Banks and Belair work together for a minute. Banks hits a Rana on Jax. That looked kind of ugly and it just didn't look too smooth. Heels take over. Baszler catches a distraction and Jax knocks Belair off the apron. Baszler slows down and locks on the submission. Heels isolate Belair in their side of the ring and cut her off from the corner. Belair fights back. Banks gets the hot tag. Banks goes down to Tornado DDT. That's like the second or third one of these we've seen tonight. Anyway, and then Belair hits a 450 splash. Why is she using that if that's not the finish? Reginald jumps up on the apron to distract her. Banks targets the back, locks on the bank statement on Baszler. Belair jumps in the ring to stop Jax from breaking up the submission. Jax pushes her into Banks, and they get the submission anyway. So basically, we're killing Belair at this point. Belair and Banks start to, or they're killing Baszler at this point. Banks and Belair start to argue and yell at each other. Banks pushes Belair and calls her a rookie. Even if that were true, how is that an insult? Belair starts to leave the ring. Baszler rolls out and rolled up Banks for the win. Post-match, Banks and Belair continue to argue. Banks slaps Belair. Belair leaves in shock, looks up at the WrestleMania sign. So basically, this match was completely pointless and just there to fill time because it's the distraction, dissension finish. Michael Cole and Corey Graves, worst announcers in the business, discussed Shane McMahon injuring his knee earlier today. So they're going to bait and switch on an angle just because, well, they can. He walks out of the trainer's room with ice on his knee. Obviously, this is to set up Mania, but I get it. I get that. But at the same time, why promote something that you're not going to follow through on? Oh, yeah, because we think the fans are stupid and we think they'll come back no matter what we give them. Elias and Jackson Riker approach McMahon. Elias wants to discuss a pitch for the performance at WrestleMania 37. He mentions Bad Bunny and making him look bad. McMahon has an idea. He wants to talk to them. And obviously this is where Elias later steps into the match, which is just... I wish there was a way to legally hold promoters accountable for changing things when there isn't a need. I'm all for changing things if someone has a concussion or another injury and can't perform, or they legitimately can't get there because weather is bad. But changing things just because we didn't plan ahead? What if there's a kid with a terminal illness and the one thing they wanted out of life was to see Shane McMahon? I realize that's an extreme example, but my point is you have to make your word matter for something. Anyway... Intercontinental Champion Big E defeats Apollo Crews to retain the title. So what's the point of giving Crews a new gimmick if he's just going to lose anyway? And for the record, I'm all for Big E holding on to the Intercontinental title if it's going somewhere. But at the same time, he's in go-nowhere feuds, really. Anyway, so... the match isn't bad as it hits. The finish is kind of pointless. So they trade punches and strikes in the middle of the ring. Big E spears Crews off the apron. I agree, by the way, with Lance Storm. Was listening to his podcast earlier in the week, and he says Big E needs a last name. I wholeheartedly agree with this. I mean, you know, like if you went to a baseball game or a football game and the announcer said, and playing in right field, Big E, people go, huh? Anyway, so he follows up with a splash off the apron. Big E's in control and makes fun of Crews. Follows up with a second splash on the apron. Big E gives him a series of belly-to-belly suplexes, throws him across the ring like he's nothing. Crews attacks Big E's knee, which hadn't really been worked over, so this came out of nowhere. Crews takes over and hits German suplexes on a guy as big as Big E. This looks stupid. It just doesn't look believable, and especially with the amount of punishment he's taken. He hits a frog splash for near fall. Again, he got beat up, and he's got the energy for a frog splash less than 3 minutes later. Crews attempts a standing moonsault. Big E gets his knees up. Big E misses a charge in the corner, goes shoulder first into the post. Crews attempts a powerbomb. Big E slipped off the back. Big E attempts the big ending. Crews avoids it. The finish comes out of nowhere. Big E attempts a cradle. Crews attempts to reverse. Big E appeared to pin Cruz, and the announcers are lost at the finish. So either the finish got botched, or there was bad communication, or they decided to go home and it didn't go the way they planned. But regardless, this looks like trash. So two things that are completely predictable and unnecessary. Uh, there's some dude named Joseph Average selling Old Spice to Tozawa. He and selling Old Spice and Tozawa approaches. He's looking for our truth. Our truth is hiding in the display case. Average pins Truth, but Truth wins the title back. This is completely pointless. This is not the hardcore title where we're just doing gimmicks. This is, hey, let's make fun of wrestling because belts are props. They showed footage of Shane injuring his knee earlier today while practicing strikes. McMahon introduces Elias for a concert. He comes out on a crutch and announces that Elias is taking his place in the match tonight. This does not seem to make him happy as he's facing Braun Strowman's squash match. Strowman dominates Elias and easily wins, beats him down, takes an early advantage. Riker tries to help, but that doesn't work out. Strowman runs around ringside like a lumbering semi-truck and sends Elias into the barricade. Riker distracts Strowman and Elias briefly takes over with a DDT, hits an elbow off the top. Strowman nails Elias with a clothesline, regains control, then hits a power slam for the win. This is horrible. They recap something we've already seen just a few minutes ago, and that's the turn of Mustafa Ali, but it was on the pre-show, so apparently they don't even think the people that are watching this network per-view, can we call it Peacock per-view? Can we say that WWE got peacocky about how well this switch was going to go? Anyway, they recap that. And Riddle's riding around on a scooter. He approaches Nakamura, wishes him luck in his match later. Later apparently becomes just a few minutes later. Riddle tells a story. Nakamura hid until Riddle goes away. I wish I could have hid. Well, I guess I could have. I could have hit mute. Anyway, so Rollins defeats Nakamura. Match isn't bad. They start slow, build to something. Waste of Seth Rollins, though, in matches that, honestly, is anybody going to remember this in like a month? They recapped and the feud with Cesaro and Nakamura with Rollins. Nakamura has an advantage. Rollins takes over early. He hits a series of knees and then follows up with a backbreaker. Rollins slows things down and hits a knee drop for near fall. Rollins continues to beat up Nakamura and starts yelling about Cesaro. Why is that Nakamura's problem? Rollins then says he's going to give Nakamura the giant swing. Nakamura fights back, goes for an armbar. Nakamura doesn't get there because Rollins cuts him off. Nakamura does take over, hits a sliding drop kick on Rollins, follows up with a knee on the apron. Nakamura hits a knee in the corner for another near fall, attempts a knee off the second turnbuckle. Rollins knocks him to the floor, follows up with a suicide dive. Hey, it's several matches in the first dive junk we've seen. Rollins hits a springboard knee to the face. By the way, knees, one of the most overrated moves in wrestling at the moment. It used to be super kicks, now it's MMA knees. Rollins attempts buckle bomb. Nakamura escapes, hits a kick to the head. Nakamura follows up with a sliding German suplex. Would have been cool if we hadn't seen several of them in the Apollo Crews and Big E match. Nakamura goes for the Kinshasa. Rollins counters with a buckle bomb. I thought they banned that move, by the way. He follows up with a Falcon Arrow for near fall. Rollins attempts curve stomp. Nakamura avoids the strike. Rollins goes for running knee. Nakamura ducks. Rollins counters and delivers a kick to the back of the head. Rollins hits the curve stomp for the win. This was fine, but does it do anything for either guy going forward? Not really. Raw commentators talk about Rhea Ripley debuting tomorrow night. She can kiss her career goodbye. So then we go to Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. I wasn't a fan of this match, but when you have 12 network per-views just for the sake of having them, well, you've got to fill time somewhere, and you do need Drew, who's probably the biggest star you have on the show somehow. Anyway, some people liked the match. I didn't. I mean, they have bruises and cuts over their backs, which I guess means they're hardcore. But in reality, it's two friends beating the heck out of each other for other people's entertainment. They trade shots. Nakamura catches Sheamus with a belly to belly. I'm sorry, McIntyre said Nakamura because he was in the last match. Hits a belly to belly suplex, sends him to the floor with a clothesline. Uh, Sheamus reverses him into the barricade. McIntyre hits a belly to belly suplex on the floor. And then clears off the announce table and pulls out kendo sticks. Hey, we haven't seen those 87 times since January. Put him under the ring. Sheamus jumps in, sends him into the ring post. McIntyre hits a belly to belly suplex again on the floor, throws Sheamus into the steps. Sheamus hits McIntyre with the knee of doom. So now we've seen knees in almost every match. Anyway, Sheamus takes over, hits McIntyre with a kendo stick a bunch of times. McIntyre fights back and hits Sheamus with the Glasgow kiss. McIntyre goes back to the dreaded kendo stick of doom and hits Sheamus in the back. He then tries jabbing the kendo stick into Sheamus's eye, which would have taken us back to Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins. Wouldn't that have been fun, boys and girls? Anyway, kendo stick shots draw cuts on both men because, well, we're hardcore and we hit each other for real. Sheamus rolls to the floor. McIntyre charges at Sheamus and sends him into the steps. They fight on top of the announce desk. Attempt of the Future Shock DDT, but that doesn't go well. McIntyre throws Sheamus off the table into the barricade. They brawl around the Thunderdome into the stands because, well, every match has to be last man standing eventually, don't you know? McIntyre attempts a suplex, but Sheamus counters with a suplex, and they fight on the platform in front of the screens. Sheamus took over after hitting a rolling senton. Then Sheamus sets up another rolling senton, but McIntyre breaks free. He hits Sheamus with a... they send him into the monitors and sparks fly because this is a movie. And McIntyre places Sheamus on a box and rolls it back to ringside. McIntyre gives him a suplex on the floor again. So that's like the sixth one, maybe. McIntyre then tries to carry Sheamus back to the ring. Sheamus pokes him in the eyes. Well, that's nice. Sheamus then hits a brogue kick, and McIntyre goes leaping over the barricade. Sheamus yells at McIntyre that this should be the WrestleMania main event. Please, no. 37 years later, this should not be the main event. Anyway, Sheamus then gives McIntyre white noise on the barricade through the announce table. That was predictable. Sheamus shoves McIntyre back in the ring, grabs a piece of the announcer's desk, because we have to continue using the same weapons we've already broken. Finish comes when Sheamus attempts the Alabama Slam onto the piece of the table. McIntyre counters into the Future Shock DDT, hits a Claymore kick, and gets the win. I know people are going to like this, but I've seen so many of these. Who cares? Like, after 32 years, I get that you're not going to see something new every time, but I want my matches to matter, at least for the sake of the next month. Did this match matter? Like, if you missed this, did you really miss anything? Anyway, speaking of did you miss this, did you miss anything? Alexa Bliss defeats Randy Orton. It's an angle to set up the return of the Fiend. They do a bunch of special effects, as though we're in some C-rate horror movie. Orton comes out first and poses. Orton starts to cough up ooze like he's Gene Okerlund at the hands of Papa Shango. He demands that Bliss comes out. Lights turn purple. Orton walks towards Bliss. Flames appear in the ring out of nowhere. So this is really safe. Like, we're, in a pandemic, and we need special effects because we won't let guys and girls, in this case, work. Yay! Anyway, Orton backs off, charges at Bliss. She moves, and he goes shoulder first into the ring post. So after 20 years, Randy Orton is outsmarted by a girl. Good to know. Bliss laughs, and Orton follows Bliss around ringside. She stops. She looks at the lights, and lighting rig almost falls on Orton. So it just randomly, telepathically almost fell. Anyway, Bliss laughs and challenges Orton to get in the ring. Bliss blows a kiss at Orton. he gets upset and runs towards her. She hit him with a fireball. Hadoken or Mortal Kombat finisher. Anyway, so um, Orton goes down to the commentators, claimed Orton blocked the fireball, so now he has the ability to transfer fire. Hey, everybody's got special powers now. Bliss sets up on the top turnbuckle and stares at Orton. Fiend comes through a hole in the ring. Hey, we haven't seen that before. Actually, yeah, we have. But Undertaker and Kevin Nash did it better in 1996. Fiend emerges. Fiend mask is melted and deformed. He looked like that because he was set on fire at TLC, of course. Orton backs off. Bliss pushes him into the Fiend. Fiend hits Sister Abigail, and Bliss covers Orton for the win. Oi, that means unfortunately we get more of Orton and the Fiend. Oh, joy. Anyway, we go to the main event. Universal Champion Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman defeats Daniel Bryan to retain his championship. A special ringside enforcer, Edge. Bryan and Reigns had the best match of the night. They work a slow pace, but it picked up towards the finish. Reigns backs Ryan in the corner, hits him with a chop, and Bryan tries a knee bar. He continues to go after the legs of Reigns. Bryan attempts an armbar. Reigns breaks free. Bryan hits some kicks, and then Reigns countered with a side headlock. I don't know where that particular counter exchange came from. Bryan works over his shoulder and hand. I guess the legs don't matter anymore. Reigns regained control, backed Bryan into the corner. Bryan fights back and catches Reigns with a dropkick. Bryan goes on attacking both arms and legs now. Reigns takes over. Bryan fights back. Reigns looks over at Edge, who's, by the way, the special referee who hasn't really done much. Bryan goes up into the corner and gets countered with a backbreaker. Match gets slowed down with a chinlock. Bryan breaks free. Reigns knocks him to the floor. Reigns beats him up around ringside and looks at Edge, almost begging him to do something. Reigns charges at Bryan. Bryan moves. Reigns crashes into the corner. Bryan recovers. Hits a running dropkick in the corner. He attempts a run off the top, but Reigns does a nice reversal into a Boston Crab. Bryan fights back and rolls Reigns into a near fall. Bryan sends Reigns to the floor and attempts a plancha. Reigns counters into a power move, picks him back up. Bryan slips off his back, pushes him into the ring post. Is that like the default outside the ring spot now, the push into the ring post? Anyway, Bryan hits a missile dropkick for a near fall, hits Reigns with a series of kicks, but Reigns backs him into the corner. Reigns tries a power bomb, but Bryan reverses it into a Rana. Follows up with a kick to the head for a near fall. Bryan stomps on Reigns' face and transitioned into the yes lock. Reigns almost makes it to the ropes, but Bryan rolls into the middle of the ring and repeats the attempt at the yes lock. Reigns breaks free, hits a power bomb for a near fall. Reigns attempts a spear. Bryan catches him with a kick to the face. The referee is standing behind Reigns. Bryan goes for the running knee. Reigns moves, hits the ref, and Reigns hits the spear. Graves astutely notes there's no referee. Edge jumps into the ring. Bryan kicks out. Reigns and Edge argue. Reigns attacks Bryan. Bryan reverses the yes lock again. Jey Uso runs out and hits Edge with a super kick. No leg slaps, folks. He caught Bryan with a super kick, and no leg slaps there either, apparently. Uso grabs a chair, sends Edge into the ring post. We love that ring post, don't we? Uso tries to hit Bryan with the chair, but he avoids it. Bryan got the chair, beat Uso with it. He notes the referee's down, so he hits Reigns with the chair. Reigns moves, and Bryan hits Edge instead. Reigns charges at Bryan. Bryan applies the yes lock. Reigns eventually taps out, but there's no referee. Edge grabs the chair and attacks both Bryan and Reigns. Edge is angry and yells the title shot at WrestleMania. He storms off in an angry rage. Reigns crawls over, pins Bryan for the win. So does that mean Edge is now a heel? If so, is that really the way you want to go with telling his WrestleMania return story? Anyway, honestly, this has good wrestling in parts of it, but WWE is more and more trash after 32 years. I watch because I support the talent and I want to get into promoting again someday. But wrestling, from where I can see, as far as storylines, athleticism is through the roof. Storylines, it's at an all time low. Anyway, we'll be back with the NWA pay per view and maybe some other stuff tonight. We'll see. I've been really busy lately, but hope to catch up again really soon. Anyway, till next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.